Welcome to another edition of the Chicks on the Right podcast. We're doing a deep dive today with Matt Lohmeier, who is an Air Force Academy grad from 2006, a former T-38 and F-15 pilot, former lieutenant colonel commander in the Space Force, and also the author of a book whose title I need to read because I could not memorize it. The 2020 book called Irresistible Revolution, Marxism, Goal of Conquest and Unmaking of the American Military. Thank you so much, first of all, for being with us. We appreciate it.
You.
Sure.
And we got to know you because we played a couple of clips of you for our audience on our morning show when you recently testified in front of Congress about DEI and wokeism kind of infiltrating our military, which is a topic that Daisy and I have discussed at length many times on our show. So you said some things in that hearing, and we were very, very proud of you for doing it.
I don't know if I've told you today, but you look good, girl. You look good.
Really?
Is it the Gen 90? Is it the Gen 90
Probably.
from Genucel?
Have you been using it?
I've been using it on my forehead because I don't want to get Botox in my forehead.
Same.
And so I use it here. And I don't use it so much here, but I use it here.
Or here.
I do. Or here, but I use it here. And it's awesome because it really, it does here. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It does. This is the sound. You ready for the sound?
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
the sound.
it does that.
That's the sound it makes, the Gen 90. It's magical. It does what like all this injectable crap that you shouldn't be doing does. And it's fantastic. It's a collagen builder, moisturizer. It has like, it's just fantastic. It's stuff that you want to be putting on your skin rather than having all these injections and things shoved into your face. And it's fantastic. And people should try it. If you haven't tried it, you should try it.
For real. And I don't know if the Gen in Gen 90 is supposed to just be short for Genucel or if it's to refer to the fact that they are generations ahead of other skincare companies. Whichever way they're going, it's working for them.
Mm-hmm.
And the Gen 90 is included right now in the most popular package. If you order at genucel.com/chicks, that's GENUCEL.com/chicks, you will also get a free beauty box and deep firming serum while supplies last and free shipping. So that's a whole lot that you're getting for not very much money. genucel.com/chicks. But your story begins obviously with distinguished service in the military and then an abrupt departure, which we want to understand the details about because it seems very unfair, the circumstances around your being released from command. Can you walk us through that story?
Yeah, let me try and hit some highlights. Thanks for having me join you. And I don't do a good job with self-promotion, which is probably why a lot of people in the country wouldn't have heard of me. I'm not offended in the least about that. But let me try and hit some highlights. Feel free to interrupt me if it's useful. As you mentioned, after I left the Air Force Academy, I was flying jets for the Air Force and then later went into the Space Force. And on the whole, there was no overt politicization of the military workplace during the entire time I served in the military. It didn't matter what your political worldview was. That was kind of private. You went and voted if you wanted to or not. Whatever your religious worldview was, it might have been known to your friends. That wasn't discussed in the workplace. Didn't matter what your race was, your socioeconomic makeup background, because they gave everyone the same ugly haircut and the same beautiful uniform. And you all saluted the same flag and you swore the same oath to defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic, period. Mm-hmm. And so whatever your mission was in whatever branch of the military you happen to be serving in, that's what you focused on. And that changed dramatically. You can trace a line in the sand a number of different places. I understand that. But when George Floyd died and we saw riots and activism seizing upon the country in the spring and summer months of 2020, the same cultural, revolutionary, spiritual impulse that we saw in the media that was taking place across the country was also happening in our military. And we had a small minority of left-wing activists who were in senior leadership positions in the military, and also the youngest of the people in the military, seizing the moment to push certain very, very hyper-political talking points that were anti-American, that were demonizing our founders, that were demonizing the Constitution of all things. Totally, that's not acceptable in my view anywhere in this country. But we allow people the freedom to do that, but it's illegal in the military workplace. And at the time, Donald Trump was president, and it's illegal for a service member. It's against the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's illegal for them to publicly criticize their commander-in-chief. And that was happening in uniform. And so I tried to, and here's where we get to the heart of the story, and then I'll take a pause. I tried to explain what I was seeing by overt politicization to my chain of command, to my immediate supervisor, as well as all the way up the chain to the 4-star general who was in charge of the Space Force, because I knew him well. I got on the phone with him and talked with him, but he was a member of the Joint Chiefs. Every service chief is a member of the Joint Chiefs. The response I received was that they agreed with me that there was a big problem, and they seemed rather powerless to do anything about it. So I filed a formal written complaint, and there's reasons why they felt powerless to do something about it, but that's besides the point for now. I filed a formal written complaint with the Space Force Inspector General's office, detailing Marxist critical race theory that was being taught, how it was dividing the troops, it was leading people to want to leave the service, as hurting our recruiting efforts, so on and so forth. That was dismissed after Joe Biden. They sat on that for 3 months, but Joe Biden came to office. That was dismissed, and so I wrote a book, the book that you've mentioned, Irresistible Revolution. That came out in May of 2021, and I was fired from command in the Space Force for writing it, not because of the content of the book per se, but because senior leaders were so afraid that someone they knew well, who had a good record, that people would listen to, had written a book about Marxism and about the left politics. And it wasn't meant to be overtly partisan. It was meant to call out our need for greater accountability in the military workplace by eliminating partisanship and to allow young men and women to enjoy the military workplace and do their mission. And so I was fired. I've been speaking around the country for the past couple of years ever since. And that's why finally, I was asked to come and testify in Congress about, what impact have I seen in the last couple of years since writing this book? And it's not gotten any better.
So you said you were fired. You're fired from the military, no benefits. You had is that what happened to you? Just because you had a glowing record in the military, then they just said you got to go now because you wrote this book. It's astounding. I don't understand.
What was the process? How did they justify it?
How do they do that?
Well, a couple of different things to understand, I guess. I did have a good record. And in fact, in lead up to my congressional testimony, I shared a number of things with the subcommittee that had invited me to join them for the testimony. And one of those things was a summary of my military record. And they posted that online. I didn't know that was going to happen. I wasn't trying to get my military record in the public, but the night before the hearing, they posted not only my submission of a written opening statement and hundreds of, over 100 pages of substantiating attachments, but they posted my military record, and people were retweeting that. I don't know how you say it these days, re-Xing that. They were sending it out on X, and so it was a little uncomfortable. I didn't intend for that to be public, but it's good. I was the number one officer in the Space Force in my peer group, promoted 2 years early to lieutenant colonel. And so, to answer your question, Daisy, I was in command as a lieutenant colonel. I was fired from my command, and so I was no longer in a commander position after I was fired, but I was still a lieutenant colonel in the military and in the Space Force. But that lasted for about 3 months. There was an ongoing investigation to determine if I had acted in some way that was unauthorized, illegal, unethical, immoral, and I hadn't. I hadn't at all, and I wasn't found guilty of anything. But at the time, they'd wrecked my reputation as a leader. They were the ones, meaning Space Force leaders, that coordinated a story on military.com the very next morning after I'd been fired, saying that they'd lost their trust and confidence in my ability to lead. That's the same thing they say about child predators. That's the same thing they say about drug users. And it's well, how do you, if they're not going to specify the reasons for your firing, the only thing that the American people know, and that now everyone in that branch of in all branches of the military know about you is that you are no longer trusted to lead people.
Wow.
So I requested something that is occasionally approved by Congress. It's called TERA. It's the Early Retirement Authority. As long as you've had 15 years at least in service, you can technically, under certain circumstances, qualify for an early retirement. It's a certain percentage of your full pension.
Right.
And I requested that. I had senators, Senator Tom Cotton and others, writing letters to the Secretary of the Air Force urging that they approve my early retirement since they had wrecked my reputation. And they denied it. And so I voluntarily separated without my pension because it was either stay in and keep your mouth shut about what's going on, or get out and keep using your voice to try and inform people about the woke revolution that's taking over the military. And so I chose to get out and do that. And maybe someday, if Trump's back in office, or someone who cares about restoring the military, that you start to see a restitution for some of these wrongs that have been done over the past.
They just wanted you to go away. They just wanted you and the truth to go away, which is so gross.
What's too bad is that I had a really good relationship with the senior leaders some of the senior leaders in the Air Force, and especially with some of the senior leaders in the Space Force. We respected each other. We didn't necessarily see things differently, but out of fear, they wanted to make sure they stayed good with the regime.
And that was all happening during the whole COVID nightmare also.
That was a part of it.
So because I haven't had the opportunity to read your book yet, but I'm wondering if I know your focus was obviously Marxism and DEI and that kind of thing. Did that come up in your writing at all? Do you feel, because I remember Daisy and I talking a lot about all these forced separations from the military, from people who didn't want to take the vaccine. Right. And now it's just, I look at you and I think about all of those service folks who were forced essentially to get out because they wanted to stick by their convictions. And I think those are exactly the kinds of people that we need in the military
right now.
And now, and I'm just looking at what a waste of you. I mean, not that you're not what you're doing now is not important.
But when I'm a wasted human. Thank you.
But you know what she means. Like
you know what I mean,
yeah, I
right? You know what she means. It's because
I just can't believe that you're not able. That they prevented you from being able to serve. And you're exactly who we want to have serving.
You're the poster boy for who we want in the military.
You want strong people.
Right.
Think about this. If you care about military strength, if you care about lethality, if you care about readiness, if you care about winning or deterring wars, you want strong men first and foremost.
Right. Exactly.
You don't mince words about this. You want strong men. And ideally, and commonsensically, they will love their country and be willing to die for it.
Exactly.
And everything that the DEI industry is seeking to do is demonize men. It's criticism of Western civilization, demonization of our founders in this country. And you have people on both sides. This is the interesting part. There are people on both sides of the political aisle who hate what they're hearing. And so it disincentivizes their service to the country. If they're, let's say they're conservative and they don't buy into it, they know better and they think it's all propaganda. They don't want to serve in a military that's pushing that narrative, first off. If they're Christian and conservative, let's say, and they refuse because it's against their conscience to take the COVID shot, they push them out because they're not politically compliant. But on the other hand, if you're leftist and roughly speaking, let's say even, and you like what you're being taught about the evils of the country, and you like that you're being taught that it's not redeemable, it's systemically racist, it's and anymore it is evil, frankly, and we need to return to something that was far more lovely. But if you're buying into all of that, that also disincentivizes service. Why would you be willing to lay your leftist neck on the line for an irredeemably racist country when you could join the revolution against it, right?
Yeah. Do you still have like I say peers? I don't know how that works in the military. Do you still have people who are kind of on your, I guess, on your level? I don't know how to say it, but that are still in the military that you have contact with, and do you have a pulse basically on what 100%. It's like to be in the military right now?
It's good that you bring this up, because the people I talk to most often are the ones feeding me information about what's going on currently. They send me emails or text messages with policy memorandums that are coming out that are ugly things. But it's important to point out also that I have got peers and others that are not my peers that are having a good experience in the military by and large. They're not burdened by the stuff that we're talking about. I meet parents sometimes when I go out and speak. They say, my son's in the Navy. He's been in for 4 years. And I told him I was coming to listen to you speak. And he says, I don't know what he's talking about. And my response to those people, my initial impulse is like, well, he needs to wake the hell up.
Yeah.
But my other response is, it's what I give them is I say, I'm glad he's having a good experience.
Yeah.
Because I genuinely think, you know what, like maybe his unit is largely unimpacted so far by the activism. And maybe the job that person does has allowed for an environment that this isn't like this isn't a common weekly or monthly talking point or training session. Maybe they do a one annual DEI training that they check the box on and they move on. But
it's kind of like being at a decent school. Like my daughter is in public school, and it's like being in a decent school, like here in Texas. But like the Department of Education as a whole is a huge freaking mess.
It's a big problem.
And so, yeah. I mean, you can be lucky in a pocket, but perhaps the whole thing holistically is like a giant disaster right now. So that's why I was wondering if you talk to those people that are still in there and they're like, we're in trouble, you know?
Yeah, I still talk to those people. I have examples that start to just filter to the forefront of my mind because it's a constant thing. And to be quite honest with you, what decent person doesn't want to escape the ugliness of the present moment and to focus on that which is lovely and beautiful and decent and good about the country and about whatever your faith is and in your family and all of that stuff. And I've wanted so much to just escape to a private. I mean, I'm reading The Lord of the Rings for the first time in my life. I've watched the movies. I'm a big reader, but I've never read much fiction. And so I'm reading The Lord of the Rings. I'm reading about the Shire and the Hobbiton and these hobbits, and I just can like hear the music from the movies playing, and I think like I want to go live in the Shire, and I want to have nice people around me who don't want government involvement in their life, and they're strong, and they pursue what they're passionate about in the pursuit of happiness. That's what in one very real, tangible sense, the greatness of the American ideal was that through a virtuous, limited government, which the virtue part can't last for very long.
Right.
I should say limited government that you're filling by elections and for purposes of representation with a decent and religious and moral people allows for the citizen their life and their liberty and the pursuit of happiness, which is like figure out what God's will is for you and go pursue it, and do that and tend to your garden and tend to your family relationships and get involved in political office or in the local school system if you'd like. But we are constantly burdened by the impositions of an unjust government at the state and the federal level now. Yes. So how do you do anything else but continue to get roped into the dialogue?
So you know how I've been like ordering seafood like crazy and all kinds of steaks from Omaha Steaks, and I just have been sort of in this like mode of ordering tons and stuff. Oh my gosh, I cannot
Martha
stop.
Freaking Stewart right now. It's crazy.
Can't stop.
Don't even know who you are, but yes.
And it's like they knew, because it's like they've been listening to me and they know they've been like, Mock is ordering a lot. You know what we should do? We should start a subscription service. And so that is what they did. And now I am thinking about joining it because I'm constantly ordering from them anyway.
Yeah, it's awesome. This subscription service, you get to choose the foods that you want and change selections anytime. You can choose the quantity. You can choose the frequency. You can pause the program if you want to. You can cancel anytime. It's fantastic. Like this is bomb. I totally want to do this too. So you can lock in an extra 10% off every subscription order. Plus you get free burgers for life, Mom.
Hello.
All you gotta do is visit omahasteaks.com/chicks. I mean, there's probably a minimum purchase, which is no big deal because I'm going to totally do that. And then with Omaha Steaks, every purchase is backed by their unconditional money back guarantee. Go to omahasteaks.com/chicks and customize your subscription to checkout. Do it. omahasteaks.com/chicks.
So would you do it again? I mean, because it sounds like, at least from what I've read, that it wasn't like you were writing this book covertly on like stealth and all being sneaky about it. You were very open about your concerns. You tried to go through the proper channels. You did all the things. So did you, when you started the book then, did you think to yourself, there's a risk that I'm taking here, and you did it willingly and knowingly? Or were you surprised by the consequences of writing that book?
I would do it again. I don't regret anything I've done. I'm not interested in doing some big thing unless I feel compelled that I'm obligated to do something like that. I was happy to be a commander in the military. I would do it again. I was distracted by the word that's on the black mug over your shoulder. I saw. I was going to say, what's that? What's on your mug back there?
Oh, the yellow writing. It just is my nickname, Mock.
It
says
Mock.
Mock.
Okay, it looks like
It's not. It's not the F word. I think he thought it was the
why
F
you
word.
find this distracting. What on earth about this shelf would you find distracting?
The whole shelf.
But
There's
here's the
monkeys
short.
and dogs. There's nothing distracting about her
I
shelf.
tried to read
Matt.
what's on the
Come
monkey's chest. I thought,
Sorry.
Right. It says mock on it. He's probably like,
Okay.
is there a naughty word on there? I
It looks like it starts with an F.
Yeah.
No. I promise
Okay.
it's all on the up and up. But were you surprised by what happened?
Yeah.
You were?
So I considered every possible outcome. I discussed that with my wife. We went into that with our eyes fully open. However, I was still surprised at how things played out. For example, my book was published, and a week later, I'm being fired on the phone by a 3-star general in my chain of command
Gosh.
for alleged political partisanship while acting in an official capacity, which is totally false, and for publicly criticizing my chain of command. Those are the exact words that were used. That was totally false. I didn't do either of those things in my book.
Yeah.
I had never done either of those things in any public or official capacity. And I was always very careful to make sure I was complimentary of my chain of command, my senior leaders. Although, and frankly, at that time, they were deserving of my trust, respect, and even though they were unfortunately incapable of deciding quickly and for themselves that we needed to take a stand against what we now so easily refer to as wokeism. I thought, these are good people. They've served their country for a very long time. And I get that they don't want to get mixed up in the political fray. They want to go comfortably back to the Shire and retirement, as we're talking about. They want, they're at 30-something years of service, and they're hoping this is a passing phase in American political life. It's going to go away. And I didn't view it that way one bit. I saw the writing on the wall. I studied how Marxist revolutions take place, and everything was mounting, and I see that this isn't going to change. And in fact, if we don't change course immediately, the consequences of our current decisions will be difficult to unmake and undo over the next 5 and 10 years. So it has to be talked about.
Right.
And I was surprised that they fired me quickly for false reasons, by the way, but it was out of fear. And I was surprised that they refused to approve my retirement, given the fact that they knew that they had, under false pretenses, fired me. And
did you have any
what can you
recourse
do? I
with
don't
that?
regret any of that.
Could you sue them? How does that even work? Can you? Is there recourse?
I think I could have. I don't know what the statute of limitations is. I've even considered it since then.
Yeah,
it's been 2.5 years.
You totally should.
This May will be 3 years since I was fired. But the time in which I was separating, the fall of 2021, and in which it was like the most sweet time to sue.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, I don't have a litigious soul, and this is a hard time for my family, and I want to make our transition to civilian life as easy as possible and not end up in the news cycle all over again.
Yeah, but the fact that I'm paying for
litigation.
Fauci's pension and all of his benefits, and you don't get anything, that makes me crazy. You should.
It's maddening.
It makes me crazy.
It is maddening.
Yeah, it's not right.
Yeah.
Speaking of maddening, can we talk about that congressional hearing? Because
it's maddening.
You were faced with some serious stupid, and there was that moment where you rightly lost your temper, and you were like, "You guys don't know what you're talking about, and this is all bullshit." And I was like, "Yeah, you go." And that's the clip that we ended up playing for our audience.
Okay.
It was.
So how? first of all, I think what 2.5 hours. I think that you were.
It was probably
I
over
think it
2
was
hours.
around that, and you had your few moments, and then of course the way that those hearings work, I'm reclaiming my time or whatever it is that they do to interrupt your thought process.
Oh my gosh.
So, but after all that, because, so often we see these hearings where there's amazing people like you giving testimony that's so important for the country, for the world to hear. And then it's like we get all excited about what was said and the impact of those words we know that they had on us, but does
Right.
it do anything? Was there
Right.
an outcome? Is there ever any follow-up? Like, what was did that help anything? You know what I mean? Or do you just feel super
Totally.
frustrated like we always do when we watch those hearings?
I felt frustrated going into the hearing because I wrestled with that question. I thought, is this just political drama? Is this a play? And everyone's up there playing politics.
Mhm.
And so I thought, use my time well, prayerfully, sincerely consider what it is that you need to convey, as a spokesperson for what you understand. Convey that. Be honest in how you answer questions, but try not to get overly emotional. And I told my
Right.
wife, one of the greatest challenges I'm going to have in that room is not getting emotional in my response, because I knew I'd have like my body temperature go through the roof as I listened to some of
Right.
these
I would be the
idiots.
same way. Yeah.
Right? And so I'm
Mhm.
sitting there listening to these guys, and I can see the hate like coming off of some of the
Oh my
Democrats' faces in
gosh.
that room.
How dare they?
Totally unwilling. It's like they want to preach to us about diversity, right?
Right.
And they've called another white male to sit right next to me who absolutely loathes my view. It's like, here's
God.
perfect proof right here at
Mhm.
this table that just because we look the same doesn't mean we think the same.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
Right?
Exactly.
Like,
right
and you could
on.
have put and in fact, what's funny about that, General Ty Sigily is his name. They couldn't pronounce his name the whole time. He's got a funny name. But Ty Sigily, he sat right next to me. We had a friendly exchange, he and I, before the hearing. We had a friendly exchange after. We were enemies during the hearing because we had a very different viewpoint to talk about.
Mhm.
And we look exactly the same. I mean, kind of. But after it's all over, there's a young black man who is sitting behind me in the peanut gallery,
Mhm.
who worked for a certain organization. He came up and introduced himself. I mean, totally to the disproof of what they were saying up there on the stand. He comes up and says, I agree with everything you said. You're spot on. Here's my card. Let's talk. And I think, see, that this is the whole point. Like the look doesn't matter.
Yep.
We need people that love their country, who understand their mission, and who are interested in being lethal on behalf of the American people. That's the whole
Yes.
point of a military, right?
Mhm.
And the American people understand that.
Yes.
But for some reason in that room, Democrats did not want to understand that. They wanted to talk. There's no such thing. We don't do racial quotas. There's no racial quotas. And that's
oh
not
my
true.
gosh.
That's just not
yes.
true. It's not
It
true
is
in
not
the
true. You're
university.
right.
It's not true in the military. It's not true at our military universities.
Mhm.
And so, and I don't know if you heard the ranking member Garcia, after he's from California, after all the witnesses got done and the whole hearing was over, he summed up for the room the views of me and the other gentlemen who were called by Republicans to be the witnesses, be witnesses. And ranking member summed up our comments, and it was totally a misstatement, totally false representation of what we had said. He said we were advocating for, what did he say? He said, you advocate for militias to overturn the regime. And I just thought, what a liar. Like,
Oh
these
my
guys are such liars.
gosh. It's just crazy.
And so anyone in uniform that watches that charade is rightly angered by what they're seeing come out of our Congress. But one more point. Like, what good does it do? I got an email a couple of days ago from that committee, and they wanted to follow up on my testimony with a certain list of questions that they wanted greater clarity on. And I said, oh, good. Like, you want more information. I don't know what good that'll do, but let me see what you're asking. I open up the document. I've not responded. I don't think I will respond. And like, question number 1, tell us, in your view, what are the origins of DEI? Number 2, in your view, do you think DEI is wrecking military readiness? I mean, it's like just a joke.
What in the world?
This is from the staff of the of the chairman of the committee. And I thought, how do you make any progress when this is how we conduct our business?
Unbelievable.
We're not serious.
Yeah. Did you know that My Pillow is having an enormous blowout sale? I love it when things are called a blowout sale. That means there's going to be lots of stuff on sale. I don't know if you've been to the website lately, but there is so much on sale.
The
at My Pillow.
slides.
Yeah. I mean, all sorts of stuff is on sale. You get like 50% off My Pillow 2.0 and the flannel sheets. You know, I love flannel sheets, 50% off of those. You can get free shipping on all the large items like mattresses and mattress toppers. I mean, everybody needs to go to My Pillow now and stock up on all the stuff this is like after Christmas, after the holidays, things where you can just stock up on all the stuff that you want to get from My Pillow because they have bomb stuff there, you guys.
I mean, the slides are less than $25 right now. You can check everything out, all the discounts at mypillow.com/chicks. Do not forget to use code chicks, and that will get you the deepest discounts. mypillow.com/chicks. So in other words, that was a wasted effort.
Well,
people are now much more familiar with your story. That is important.
There's that.
That's the outcome.
That's important, and I think it's important for people that understand the truth to speak the truth in whatever sphere of influence they occupy.
Yes.
And I shared at the very end of that testimony a summation of what I really wanted to convey, and it's that we will continue to wreck our readiness and our recruitment if we pursue this agenda, which is totally true and it's happening, and that we'll destroy ourselves as a country if we continue to do this. And it was really important to me to be able to convey that witness or that testimony in that hearing. And so I did that, whether or not there's any positive, observable, tangible outcome from the hearing.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
your voice was
we heard it. Yeah, we heard it, and a lot of other people heard it, and I think that's the best outcome, right? And and hopefully more and more people will start hearing that, and maybe we can turn the ship around, right? You have to hope for that.
Yeah, you have to try always, even when things look dark. I mean, you try your best. The voice is powerful. There's a reason free speech matters a great deal.
Yes.
It is a preventative of sorts for violence. When people lose their ability to articulate their views or even scream and shout them hatefully, let's say, at one extreme, like you need to allow people to say hateful things because that's better than killing one another.
Right.
And you start to label things hate speech.
Yeah.
And then there's certain things that are now off limits to say hatefully. You start to walk a path back from free speech and towards the use of violence in order to solve your problems.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting way to look at it because you constantly hear from Democrats, particularly, that there's speech that incites violence. And your point is well taken, that sometimes the silencing is what incites violence. And so that's an interesting way to look at it.
Words can incite violence, and rhetoric is often used to pave the way for wars. A great example of this, just my input for the day because I was thinking about it, we call this the Russia-Ukraine war. It's rhetoric. I'm going to start calling it something different. It's the NATO-Russia war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a proxy
it absolutely
war.
Is.
And the fact is, a bunch of Ukrainian people are suffering the most. But it's clear from the words of our regime, from Biden and from Lloyd Austin, from members of Congress, and from our NATO alliance that we view ourselves as at war with Russia, and we're happy to do it in a land far, far away from home in order to destroy and bankrupt Russia. We're doing it to ourselves in the process, but it's a proxy war.
Yeah.
Yep. It sure is.
One final question before we let you go, and that is it true that you speak fluent Mandarin?
It was true that I spoke fluent Mandarin. First off, Mandarin Chinese, if you're somewhat musical, isn't as hard to learn as English.
Really?
I don't believe that.
It's like you can mimic sounds, and you're up and down, and it's a beautiful language. And my first China exposure was in 2005, and the Department of the Air Force had an exchange program with the People's Liberation Army Air Force in Changchun, China. And my enunciation and my pronunciation is still somewhat correct, although my vocabulary is greatly diminished. But I went and slept in the dorms with these young PLA cadets in their Air Force Academy, north of North Korea, up in northeastern China. And recently, as a part of a movie that I'm filming, which we can talk about another time, that'll be out this summer, I was in Washington, D.C. Actually, it was the same trip, I think, that I testified in Congress, but I did a walk and talk on camera with my good friend Shi Van Fleet, Loudoun County mom, survivor of Mao's Cultural Revolution in China. And she's a very outspoken anti-Marxist, anti-communist a commentator now, and just came out with a new book. But she's a wonderful lady. And we spoke in Chinese for like 2-second sound bites at a time because that was all the fluency I can muster anymore these days.
So you can't, could you say like the chicks are awesome in Mandarin?
I don't know how to say chicks. It might sound like chickens.
The ladies, can you say ladies? The ladies are awesome.
Oh, geez, you gotta give me a warning about the stuff.
The ladies are great. The ladies are.
女人是好棒.
Oh
you
my
could have
gosh.
said anything and we'd be like, yeah, that's what I said.
That sounds good. Sounds good to us.
I don't know.
We don't know.
A Chinese person would translate that as like, these females are really awesome, I guess.
These shoes are cooked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I saw something about this documentary about you coming out, and that would be a really fantastic time to have you back. When that is it going to be this summer or fall? Do you know when it's coming? This summer.
This summer it will come out.
Awesome.
Yeah, we would love to have you back and preview that or
totally
give us the rundown. That'd be amazing.
We're wrapping up filming. Are you guys in Texas?
I'm in Texas, and she's going to be in South Carolina pretty soon. She's in Indiana right now.
Yeah,
but I'm in Texas.
I'm filming in Texas here in a couple of days.
Really, where?
Down in San Antonio, New Braunfels area.
I love that area. I love the New Braunfels. I love New Braunfels especially. But we're about 2 hours. We're right outside of Waco, so we're pretty close to there. Yeah.
Yeah. Waco. I know
That's
Waco.
exciting that you're getting a documentary.
Everybody knows Waco. Yeah,
everyone knows Waco. But yeah, this summer is when it'll come out. There's a working title that was released by the Heritage Foundation that we said, hey, take that away. We're not sure if that's the final title, but we expect to be finishing filming here in the next few weeks, and then hopefully maximum distribution throughout the country.
Awesome.
This summer.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for giving us the inside scoop on your story. It's a fascinating one that everybody should be listening to and thinking of as a warning. I mean, because it's not just about what happened to you. It's about how important what you've done since is. I mean, the fact that you continue to speak out and make people aware of the dangers of what's happening in our military. Everyone needs to be concerned about this, and we appreciate you taking the time.
Also, you're a model for speaking out. People should never be afraid to exercise free speech and speak out and be strong in doing so. So thank you for being one of those people who does that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.